Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off talking about PlayStation 2 emulation on Android with Aether SX2, and Aether SX2 is officially dead. If you head on over to the Google Play Store page, you can see it's no longer listed. It has been taken off Google Play. And if you head to their website, it has also been taken down from there. The website says 403 forbidden. Now, it's no secret that Aether SX2 was kind of going downhill for a while. It appeared that Talworth didn't want anything left to do with that emulator. After it was updated to support ads, updates came few and far in between. But there is still Nether SX2, and the last time I checked, this is still very active. For those who may not be aware, Nether SX2 is a patch for Aether SX2. It fixes some game compatibility, some controller compatibility. There are some more fixes here. It removes the ad service and even more. On top of that, in the Nether SX2 GitHub under resources, there is a version of Aether SX2 here, version 4248, which is regarded as possibly the best version of Aether SX2. If someone wanted to carry on with Aether SX2 outside of patching, it's going to be pretty difficult. Aether SX2 was partially closed source. And this is one of the big problems when you don't have open source stuff. As soon as it goes away, there's no real way to continue on with the project. If I'm not mistaken, Talworth said that if he ever stopped the project, he would release the source code, but that doesn't appear to have happened. So at this point in time for PS2 emulation on Android, we've got two real options. Play, which is 100% free and open source and doesn't require a BIOS file. And we've got Nether SX2, all hail the Red Cube. But moving on, and next up we're talking about PlayStation 1 emulation on PC with DuckStation. At the time of filming, the Android version has not been updated yet. It's worth pointing out that DuckStation is a rolling release, so it gets updated quite frequently without specific versions. And the latest version of DuckStation here, or the latest rolling release of DuckStation, has a whole bunch of things added to it. I'm not joking with you here. If you scroll through the GitHub commits, there is a ton of stuff listed. We've got a whole bunch of bug fixes, optimizations, accuracy improvements, and performance improvements. We've talked about this one before, but as a reminder, Stenzek has added support for VRR and relaxed VSync. The PC version of DuckStation is 100% free and open source, and feel free to check it out. On a quick side note here, and I want to be careful what I say because I don't want rumors to be started. I don't want to jump to conclusions, and I don't want to presume anything. If we take a look at the Android build section on the website, the last update was January 22nd. Prior to that, it got updated multiple times every single month. We have not seen an update to the Android one since January 22nd. On the Google Play Store, the latest update is January 27th. And Stenzek has flat out said, done with Android after Google pulled the "you must publish your legal name" BS. So based on that, I don't think it's crazy for me to wonder if this is the end for DuckStation on Android. It possibly could be, it possibly could not be. I mean, there's a lot of emulators out there that are still active that don't get updated very often at all. At the same time here, based on directly what Stenzek said, I'm kind of questioning as to whether or not this is going to continue to be on Google Play. Next up, we're talking about a brand new PS4 emulator. It's called PS Off. It's 100% free, it's open source, and it's for Windows. It's currently in very early stages of development. They've only tested it with AMD, and it may not work with NVIDIA. If you are curious about this one, I'll drop a link to it in the description below, and feel free to check it out. The initial preview version of this thing just dropped, version 0.2 beta, and they say here it runs some simple games like Worms WMD, Sonic Mania Plus, or Black Hole. I would argue, just like the other PS4 emulators out there, it's going to be a while before this boots a whole bunch of different games, or something massive like Bloodborne. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Next up here, I find this stuff amusing and also puzzling. I mean, there are some people out there taking credit for helping Nintendo take down Yuzu. And here is the tweet for this one. I just discovered that Nintendo has an email and instructions for reporting game copying ROMs, emulators, and illegal activities. Follow them both for the report. Let's destroy Ryujinx 2. Now, I find this stuff funny because I don't necessarily think any of this directly helps Nintendo. People may think they helped out, but at the same time, Nintendo, if I'm not mistaken here, employs people specifically to look at this stuff. I mean, from the court case, it looked like they had people in the Yuzu Discord. They already knew about this stuff. I'm assuming they know about Ryujinx. They know about Citra. They know about a lot of emulators out there. And why I find this puzzling is that Nintendo has a market cap of $65 billion. They're doing pretty darn well. They can afford to pay people to look after this stuff. And if for some reason these reports actually help Nintendo, these people are essentially working for free for Nintendo, a company that I would argue doesn't necessarily need free employment. And unless I'm mistaken, I do not think any of the $2.4 million that they won in this Yuzu case is going to anybody who reported anything to them. Now, to be perfectly clear here, I am not encouraging people to not report things to Nintendo. That is not my intention, and please do not get that impression. I am just wondering why Nintendo does not have a monetary program to encourage people to report things. Without one, I'd wonder why someone would take the time to report anything. I mean, Nintendo had a monetary program for finding vulnerabilities. Next up, we're talking about Nintendo Switch emulation with Tsuyu, and in yesterday's video, we talked about this one, and I didn't recommend it. There were a lot of people asking me why I didn't recommend Tsuyu, and I wasn't clear enough in my explanation. So in this video, I'll try to clear that up just a little bit. So first things first, this was on their original GitHub page, and it says moved to GitLab to prevent Microsoft from taking it down. To Nintendo legal team, you cannot defeat us. Even if you take me down, more would come. If you take them down as well, still more would come. You have lost this battle. I don't know about you, but to me this immediately raises a whole bunch of red flags. However, in fairness, when called out about this, it appears they deleted their GitHub. And in further fairness, it appears they've migrated to a new primary GitHub, and it doesn't say any of that stuff in here. Although the name of this emulator also raises a few eyebrows, pronounced Tsuyu, wink, wink. The next thing I find questionable is the fact that they're directly hosting Yuzu code, the same Yuzu source code that Nintendo sued Yuzu for and settled for $2.4 million for. And some of the other stuff that doesn't sit quite right with me is the amount of misinformation surrounding this project. For example, there are a lot of people out there saying the original Yuzu developers are working on this. I don't think that's the case. I don't think any of them have anything to do with this project, other than writing the original Yuzu code. And the other piece of misinformation that I've heard a lot of people talking about is that the developers have removed or are removing the illegal portions of Yuzu's code. I don't really think that makes sense. One, because Nintendo wasn't really clear on what portions of the code specifically were illegal. And secondly here, if it was that easy, the Yuzu team would have done so and continued on with the emulator. Now, I could go into even more detail as to why I can't recommend Tsuyu, but at a high level, these are the main reasons why I don't recommend it. If you wanted to use it, I can't stop you, but I do think that this project is probably going to get DMCA'd at some point in time. It's kind of screaming for it. I think part of the confusion surrounding all of this is the fact that Nintendo and Yuzu settled out of court. Nothing was necessarily proven in court in terms of legality of emulation. So with that being said, there is some gray area here, and who knows moving forward what's going to happen. But one thing I do know is that out of every single Yuzu fork I've seen, Tsuyu seems to be the most serious about moving Yuzu forward, so take that for what you will. Next up, we're quickly talking about Modern Combat 3, and the Android version of this game has been unofficially ported to the PS Vita. If you are curious about this one, version 1.0 just dropped, and I'll drop a link to the GitHub in the description below. Someone says they played for about an hour and everything seems to play and run well, but for a controller to up the sensitivity. Next up, we're quickly talking about Deviation Games, a game studio formed by Call of Duty and Treyarch developers. And this game studio has closed down before they were able to release a single game. This was confirmed in a number of places, including Reset Era, where former employees were talking about it, and it was confirmed over on LinkedIn by Chief HR and Operations Officer of Deviation Games. Next up, we're talking about Wine. Wine stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or Wine is not an emulator, depending on how you want to interpret that. And Wine version 9.4, the development version, has just released. As for what's new, VKD 3D has been upgraded to version 1.11. This one I would argue is pretty big. They've included initial OpenGL support in the Wayland driver. And on top of that, there's a whole bunch of bug fixes here, including one with the EA app installer that had no text, and now it should have some text. Next up, we're quickly talking about Infinity Blade, and we talked about this one a little while back. It was a game on iOS that was delisted a number of years ago and was ported to PC just recently. And now it appears that it's working on Android thanks to Mobox. I'll drop a link to this article in the description below, or this Reddit page in the description below, and feel free to check it out. And last up here, it appears that the fan-made Tears of the Kingdom Optimizer version 2.0 has just released. They say here it's the biggest update yet for the optimizer, with over 1,000 hours of work put into the UltraCam Beyond. The TOTK optimizer has features like increasing or decreasing the FPS, the menu FPS, the field of view, the resolution, and even more. It's got free cam options, first-person camera options, and even more. If you are curious about this one, the project is up on GitHub and it's open source. I'll drop a link to it in the description below. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you liked this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.